Okay, thank you for coming back to our event tonight, folks. And really, really excited, inspired, and I'm honored to have this guest. It's Dr. Robert Young. Dr. Robert Young is a PhD in microbiology. He's the author of several books. The pH Miracle is the best known book. And he is a proponent of an alkaline diet, and probably one of the first people to really come out and start talking about that I know of. And I had the pleasure to work with him back in, I think it was the late 1990s, and meet he and his wife in Fairfield, Iowa. And we were working on a project to educate people about eating greens. And when I first met you, I was already sort of in this vein because I was already a vegetarian and I had already given up dairy. So I was probably more alkaline than most people in America. But you really inspired me to go another leap forward in terms of being as alkaline as possible. And the thing that I think contributed for me more than anything is doing a 3-day and sometimes 7-day juice and liquid alkaline, completely alkaline for 3 days or 7 days without solid food. And that really has helped me. I'm 71 now, and I feel like I'm 21 or 31 at the most. And I'm in great shape, and people always comment on that. And, along with the meditation I do and exercise, the alkaline diet has been extremely important for me in terms of. So you've contributed to that, and I have great gratitude towards you for what you've given to me and the knowledge you've given to so many other people that I know. So
well, thank you very much. I appreciate your kind introduction and remarks. So it's been quite a journey, to say the least.
I know.
I've been at this now for close to 40 years.
Right.
And a lot of people throw the word around, pH and alkalinity, but really the research that I have been involved with in the last 4 decades is studying the effects of food on the most important organ of the body, and that's the human blood,
right,
and its environment. And then coupled with that, studying the largest organ of the body, which very few people know this, is that there's an organ called the interstitium. In German, we would call it the colloidal connective tissue of the Schad. But it's an organ, and it's filled with fluid, and that fluid is called interstitial fluid, and it bathes every cell in the human body. Understanding this, being able to test it, the biochemistry, and evaluate it against the vascular fluids, now you're looking at 100% of the issue. So I can see, based upon quantitative biochemical testing, I can measure the effects of food on not only the vascular system, but on the largest organ of the human body, which is the interstitial fluids. And just recently published an article, which is on SARS, which is an acronym that stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome.
Right.
Actually, I outlined the pathology of this, also abbreviated COVID-2, referring to the year 2002, or COVID-19, referring to the year 2019. These are just the renaming of something earlier as it relates to a particular, what I would refer to as a phantom virus. But my research has been important because it shows me what is happening with lifestyle. So when we're talking about when we're talking about an alkaline diet, I refer to it as an alkalarian lifestyle.
Okay.
And an alkalarian lifestyle is different than a vegan lifestyle or a vegetarian lifestyle. I mean, alkalarian lifestyle incorporates not only what you eat, what you drink, but also what you breathe, what you think, what you feel, and what you believe. That this type of a lifestyle, when you're focused on those foods, those liquids,
Right.
where you're living, lifestyle, and how you're living does affect what you think affects the chemistry of the largest organ of the body, which is not being measured.
Right.
We have a diagnostic center where we actually measure and quantify the biochemistry. And it's quite fascinating because what we don't see in the blood, we see in the interstitial fluids, which
Okay.
actually happens before you see it in the blood. For example, if you drink alcohol, the blood purifies itself by pushing the alcohol into the interstitium. And those fluids flow throughout the entire body, so they affect the cells of the body. Particularly, the body will push it out into the fatty tissue. So, it'll go out for a woman into the breast tissue, or it will go out into the brain tissue, which is a fatty tissue. And this is why alcohol is associated with liver cancer to pancreatic cancer to brain cancer. And the reason for that is because the interstitial fluid, if it can't remove that waste, the alcohol, if it can't remove that, then it gets pushed out into
the liver,
connective tissue,
kidneys, and all that. Right.
Well, the liver is affected, and the liver cells are affected by the fluids that surrounds it.
Right.
But to purify itself, it either has to push it to the lymphatic system and then out through the pores of the skin. So you either sweat it out or you have to urinate. That's why people that overdrink, they have to go to the bathroom because the body's got to get rid of this fluid.
Right.
And this fluid is not from the blood. It's from the interstitial fluids of the interstitium. So Dr. Galina McAlkin and I published an article on the pathology of SARS so people could understand what are the symptoms of, let's say, a dry cough to low energy to poor circulation, loss of taste, loss of smell. These are happening and are created in the interstitium, in the interstitial fluids that are directly related to your exposure of chemical poisons in the food, like glyphosate, or over exercise or cellular breakdown, which equates to abundance of lactic acid, and other chemical toxins, whether they're coming from the air, whether it's titanium dioxide or if it's hydrogen arsenic. These are waste products. Carbon monoxide, everybody knows that.
Right.
But these lead to hypoxia or lead to pathological blood coagulation if they're not being eliminated, which then leads to hypoxia, which then leads to this pathological blood coagulation, which leads to poor circulation through the pulmonary system. So the body goes into hypoxia because it cannot remove its own waste. Mm-hmm. It can't remove the carbon dioxide, mm-hmm. And so if you can't remove it, and if it gets held back, you go into respiratory acidosis. But it all began in the blood. It all began with what you're eating, what you're drinking, mm-hmm. and what you're exposed to. So what happens then, when you're actually looking under either the phase contrast or bright field microscope or even the electron microscope, what you end up seeing is you're seeing a change on the blood cells. And this is what it looks like. The membranes of the cells begin to deteriorate. And as those cells deteriorate, because of the environment they're found in, because it's been chemically altered or electrically, magnetically changing. So the polarity of the cell changes from negative to positive, and you get a reverse polarity. And this causes then acids not only or waste, chemical waste, glyphosate or carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, or even electromagnetic waste, right. Pulsating energy that's breaking down the membrane. This then affects not only the membranes, but also the genetics that causes genetic mutation. And this is when you get the spiking effect, or you see the crowning effect of the cells. And these spike proteins, I've been looking at them for 40 years. So this is not something new. So when we actually see these spike proteins, they're not coming from the outside world.
No,
they're coming.
What you're showing there is a healthy.
This is unhealthy. Okay. This is a spiking of the protein.
It doesn't look good. Yeah.
No, they break off, and these particular spikes coming off the cell as the membrane's breaking down are being picked up by PCR, RT-PCR testing, which is then giving a false positive about something that's coming from the inside based not on an infection, but on an outfection due to a compromised environment. So the pH of the fluids, particularly the interstitial fluids, which ideally should be at 8.4, drops below 7.2, gets into the 6, even down to 5.5. Cells start breaking down because the blood is trying to purify itself by pushing its waste off into the interstitium. And that then, if the interstitium can't push these waste off either through urination or through the pores of the skin, then it gets deposited in the fascia. It gets deposited in the colloidal connective tissue. Well, that causes all the colloidal connective tissue disorders. The problem with all of this is people don't understand simply. So I'm going to explain this simply. That it is dietary, what you eat, what you drink, and what you breathe that's causing a compromise of the body fluids. And that's what we are. We're a body of fluids.
Yeah.
Okay. That we're dealing with an environmental problem, not a viral problem.
Right.
This is not attack from something that we're breathing. It's not contagious. What is contagious is drinking too much alcohol and being addicted to it.
Right.
It's eating sugary foods and being addicted to it. It's having thought attacks because we're looping, what's going to happen and being in a state of fear, and emoting, into the future, and basically worrying about what our future is. So fear turns to biology, creating a compromised environment. So the simple metaphor to this that's found in the book, The pH Miracle, Revised and Updated, it begins with a question. If the fish are sick in the ocean, do you treat the fish or do you clean up the pollution in the ocean?
Yeah. Clean up the ocean. Yeah.
It's an environmental problem.
With the fish tank and the fish analogy as well. In the fish tank.
Right, exactly. So a marine biologist understands this. A medical doctor, they don't have because they're fixated on a false narrative. And the false narrative is germs cause disease.
Right.
That is totally false.
Yeah.
Germs don't cause disease.
Yeah, it's germs. It's the health of the system is what, lacking health in the system is what causes disease. Not
disease is a imbalance in the delicate pH balance of the internal fluids of the body, specifically the interstitial fluids, because that's 80% of the extracellular fluids. 20% is vascular. And then you have, of course, the intracellular fluids. But the bottom line is this is an environmental problem. And what we're calling disease is actually a symptomology of cellular breakdown due to pollutions within our solutions caused by what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe, what we think, what we feel and believe. Now, for the extraordinary comment or statement I'm going to make, what I'm going to say now is that you are the cause of your symptomologies. In other words, cancer is not a disease you can't catch. Diabetes isn't either. And the symptoms that are associated with COVID is something you do to yourself with what I've just explained. In other words, you have to take personal responsibility for the consequences of your lifestyle. This doesn't happen with an alkalarian. The reason why is they're not fixated on a phantom virus or a germ, which is a breakdown product, or the symptom of a dry cough. That's a symptom. They're focused upon the environment. And when you measure and quantify the biochemistry of the interstitial fluids of the interstitium, what you find in all cases, that those who are having symptoms, whether it's irritation, inflammation, induration, ulceration, or degeneration, that these are a compromise in the delicate pH balance of the biochemistry of the interstitial fluids. And what we find is those fluids are compromised and are in a decompensated state, which means the pH is in the 6s or even in the 5s.
Right.
And if you're really sick, if you've got a cancerous type condition, then not only are you in decompensated acidosis of the interstitial fluids, you're all going to also see decompensated acidosis in the vascular fluids, because when the body can't remove its own waste, and the process of hydrostatic pressure, where the blood pushes waste out into the interstitium, when the interstitium organ builds up and builds up, there's a pushback, and all of a sudden the stuff starts showing up. So lactic acid starts showing up in the vascular fluids. And then you start seeing hypercalcemia, where you've got high levels of calcium in the blood, where prior to that, calcium levels are normal. You're in hypercalcemia, you've got bone loss or muscle loss, and the body's trying to keep up with the demands of alkalinity in the forms of electrons, and the white cells are being released in order to pick up the garbage, because immunity is not found with the white cells. Pure immunity is found by managing and maintaining the cleanliness, the internal cleanliness of the body fluids. The bottom line is the key to health is not only managing the internal environment of our body fluids, but building healthy blood. And here again, prior to the years of looking at blood, even when Antoine Béchamp validated and documented biological transformation, or what is known as pleomorphism, and the birth of bacteria and other different types of microorganisms that are being born out of the cell based on cellular breakdown, and realizing that this was sensitive to biochemistry. That's been my research for the last 40 years. When we look at the environment and we test the fluids, we can say that yes, those who have a cancerous condition have high titers or high levels of lactic acid. Everyone knows that lactic acid, when it's in our muscles, what it feels like. Anyone that's over-exercised knows that lactic acid is painful.
Right.
This is a metabolic waste. See, our cells don't run on carbohydrates, proteins, or fat. Our body cells and the anatomical elements that make up these cells run on light energy, photon energy. And this light electrical energy that it runs on in the form of electrons is contained in our foods. And this is why I've been so emphatic about getting people to change their food selections, because I've measured the electrical activity of food and what foods will donate electrons rather than take electrons from our body. And when we understand that an avocado, when we understand when green foods from the high chlorophyll content, when we put the there's 6 doctors we need. We need Dr. Chlorophyll, we need Dr. Oxygen, we need Dr. Oils, we need Dr. Water, alkaline water, we need Dr. Sunshine, and then finally, we need Dr. Salt. Those are the 6 doctors we need. You can fire all the rest of them, including me. You don't need any of those 6 doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. Hey, would you do me a favor though? The very first blood cell, a picture that you showed where they're all black and bad out, show that the example between this is how blood should look, and that other slide, the black one.
Yeah, well, this is what pathological blood coagulation looks like. And this is what I see in people that are eating, beef, chicken, pork, and fish, and their blood is coagulated and it can't go into the lungs, so they have shallow breathing. And here you see the scalloping of the membrane. You're seeing the birth of, or the crowning effect. Here you're seeing carbon monoxide poisoning and crystals in the blood. And this is what normal blood looks like.
Yeah.
So between this, and if you compare it between this and also the scalloping effects of cells, and here you actually see all these different appendages coming off, the crowning effect of the cell. But when you know and understand, looking at pathological blood coagulation, we're seeing it here, where the body releases fibrin monomers and they start cross-linking, forming the clot. And then the blood has...
That's a clot? That was a clot that you just showed?
Yeah, that's a clot. That's a blood clot.
Oh,
But this is what we're seeing. We're seeing clotting in the liver, the pancreas, the lungs, the brain. All of the organs are showing these clots, pathological clots. And since blood has to go into the pulmonary system, and if in single file, and if it goes into groups like this, it will form a plug, and the body can't get oxygen, and you literally suffocate. Ideally, these blood cells go in to release carbon dioxide, pick up oxygen, and go back to general circulation. But that can't happen when your blood looks like this. It can't happen when your blood looks like this. It can't happen when your blood looks like this. Do you have blood like this? No, you don't. I can say that categorically, that you don't have blood like this. And the reason you don't have blood like this is because you have to be conscious about how to make those. You have to have those 6 doctors working in behalf of you, drinking the right kind of water, organic, pesticide-free food, because if not, this is what happens to the blood.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. In fact, we end up picking up more parasites. They're kind of like flies coming to the garbage. And the crystals, here's a lactic acid crystal.
Wow.
And this is what we're finding in the blood. And here's a larger picture of these spikes, these protein spikes. These are what they're putting in the vaccines. I mean, how do you fight disease with disease?
Yeah.
And if you look at this, this schematic, here is the blood vessel, here are the body cells, and here are the interstitial fluids around all the cells. This is what's being tested. We're talking about 10% of the body fluids that then are being used to diagnose a condition, and most of this is false positive.
Right.
You have to go to the interstitial fluids to test the biochemistry. You can't just get it.
They aren't even testing the fluid that would determine whether or not there was anything there.
To determine biochemically if they're in decompensated acidosis. But anybody that has a symptom of an inflammation or ulceration or degeneration is in decompensated acidosis of the interstitial fluids.
Right.
And they have blood that looks like this, not like this, but like this.
Yeah.
And it's literally deteriorating. And this is the end narrative. When you cannot continue to build healthy blood and you're literally building cells that are pushing off appendages like this,
right,
that then break off and become free, measured by a PCR test, which can't identify anything other than, a particulate of genetic matter or,
right,
RNA. But here again, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at cellular disorganization and the birth of various bacterial and fungal forms. And if I put a cross section here, you can see it. You can see this is what healthy blood looks like. Does it exist on the planet? Rare.
right.
I'd be shocked if I saw blood like this.
Mhm.
And this is what lactic acid looks like in the blood.
Okay.
And this lactic acid is a metabolite or of metabolism. And then here we have citric acid. These 2 acids are the 2 main acids of cancer.
Mhm.
Somebody said, what causes cancer? Citric acid and lactic acid levels. Where do you find them? In the blood? No, you find them in the interstitial fluids. Well,
Mhm.
why are they there? Because if the blood is compromised, give you an example. Ideal pH of the blood is 7.365. So we're talking about thousandths of a point.
Mhm.
If it drops down to 7.1, you're in a coma and you're dead at 6.9 to 7.
Wow.
So we're talking about 0.2 change to 365, but 0.265 change within the pH range, and you're either in a coma or dead. So what does the body do? The blood pushes all of it out into the interstitial fluids, and that's where the game's played.
Right.
Okay, if you want to know what's going on in the human body, you have to measure the interstitial fluid pH. And the best way to measure that is simply in your home, by getting some pH hydrant paper and testing the urine. And if the urine, which is a product of interstitial fluid, is less than 7.2, you have to take an alkalizing dose to raise it up. And that's where the stomach comes in. The stomach's trying to support that. The stomach is the major organ for immunity. It's what protects the alkaline pH of the body fluids. So if you want that pH to go up, you have to take the same thing the stomach produces, and that's sodium potassium bicarbonate. The waste product of production of that is hydrochloric acid. That's when you know that doses when you have an upset stomach, because the stomach is working to push alkalinity into the blood or into and then into the interstitium to preserve its pH. If it doesn't, you die. And it can happen in 3 or 4 minutes.
Mhm.
And that's why electromagnetic frequencies are so dangerous. Because when you're exposed to electromagnetic frequency pulsating at a very high frequency, let's say 30 gigahertz, pulsating out you, it could take maybe 4, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to the max, especially if, since this technology has been weaponized, if it's directed at you personally and you're exposed to this directly, this becomes more powerful than any gun, and it's invisible. These pulsating frequencies can target an individual from space or on ground.
To give people some what we can give them right now is a couple things. One, what are the first steps that they should take to become more alkaline and have a healthy?
Well, you have to change your diet. And the first thing and the easiest thing is start drinking alkaline water to pH at least 10. And that has to be functionally structured alkaline water with an ORP of at least negative, we'll say minimum 250 millivolts. So it has to be an electron donating water. You just can't get it from the tap. You can't get it from a bottle. Just because it says 9 pH doesn't mean it's an electron-rich water.
How do you get it?
You have to make it.
Yeah. Well, how do
you can either make it under pressure or you can make it using ionization. Ionization under process, the same way that Hoover Dam makes electricity.
So
under pressure.
So you have to buy a machine that does that, correct?
You have to buy an apparatus that takes, let's say, a flow of water into a very tiny area that creates static contraction and friction and breaks the molecular clustering up.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes it from a large under pressure, at least 40 psi, to
Mhm.
break the molecular clustering up, creates electrical energy that in it of itself, breaking it up creates more surface area, which creates more surface charge, creates more electrical energy ionization through pressurization. The other way is use titanium platinum coated plates, where you're actually passing the water through an electromagnetic field that breaks up the molecular clustering and ionizes it by creating a greater surface area. So
where do you find these machines? Is there a place online where you can order these things?
Well, I used to sell these things, but now I just recommend things. Okay. So it's not like you're buying from me. That would be particularly a huge conflict of interest.
Right.
But there are people, distributors that offer these types of things, like phmiracleproducts.com.
Okay.
And so you can read about water. The best thing is education instead of medication. Education is more powerful than medication. Education is more powerful than vaccination. I can't even tell you how important this is to empower yourself with education.
Right.
Because you don't have the knowledge to make a correct decision.
Mm-hmm.
But you should have the freedom of choice to make whatever decision you want, because it is your body, it is your life, and it should be your choice.
Yeah.
But you need to look at both sides of this, okay? And when you look at it, you look at this concept of the germ theory versus the environmental terrain theory.
Right.
I mean, what makes sense? Treating the cells or changing the environment? Realizing the cells are only as healthy as the water they're bathed in.
Right.
And so changing water becomes the most important thing that you do. The second most important thing is start eating electron-rich foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to send you a list of those foods if you don't have the resources to go out and buy the pH Miracle Revised and Updated book, which you can get at phmiracleproducts.com, or you can get it on Amazon, what have you. It's out there, okay? what I'm saying to you, read chapter 5, read chapter 11. 5 actually outlines the 6 doctors. Remember the 6 doctors?
Oh yeah. Well,
chlorophyll, oxygen, oil, water, salt, and sunshine. Okay. Those, and oxygen you get by exercising, right?
yes.
But it's also we're not talking about just O2, we're talking about O1, because the body needs O1 in order to create other elements. For example, if you have sodium, okay, which has 12 photons in its nucleus, if it takes on the oxygen protons, excuse me, not photons, but protons, it then at a nuclear level transforms into calcium. So the body uses salt to produce other elements. That's why I suggest one of the doctors is salt. So you need to get more salts, alkalizing salt. And one of the most common compound that the stomach is constantly making is sodium bicarbonate, in addition to potassium bicarbonate. These are things you can learn about, and they can protect you simply with just pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the dollar. Everyone knows how inexpensive sodium bicarbonate is. So looking at the diet, changing the diet, like I said, I'm happy to send you the list of foods to eat freely, foods you should eliminate.
But people can get that in your book, the pH Miracle, right?
Yeah, it's called the pH Miracle, not the 201. That's when it first came out in 2001. Right. That's the first edition. You can get it. It's a great book. But the revised and updated book is 2010. That's what I recommend. And specifically to read the chapter, it's called COWS, COWS, which is an acronym that stands for chlorophyll, oil, oxygen, water, sunshine, and salt. Okay. And we could even put a 7th doctor in there. That would be sex. Okay. So if you want to throw that one in as the 7th doctor, since 7's a lucky number, and and if we as guys are lucky enough, right, 7 becomes the 7th doctor.
Okay. All right. So that's also healthy for the pH.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it helps your circulation and your elimination. You know, that love connection, that heart connection. Love is one of the most powerful remedies for the body fluids. Yeah, it's highly energizing.
You said circulation and what else?
Oh, circulation leads to circulation. Circulation leads to percolation, and percolation leads to elimination.
Okay, so circulation and elimination.
Yeah, circulation and elimination. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So pH, everyone can go to phmiracle.com, is it?
No, it's pH Miracle Products. This is a distributor who offers products based upon my science.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Pure, I just want everybody to get that down. pH Miracle Products.
pH Miracle Products with an S.com.
And so not only your book is there, but also the ionizers are there as well for the water.
Yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, there's electrical ionizers, there's pressurized ionizers that need no electricity. You can hook it up to a garden hose. All you need is pressure. So most homes have, you know, pressurized systems running between 40 to 60 psi.
Okay, and the sodium bicarbonate you can also get at that.
Right, that's called the 4 salts. You know, and you should get the pH strips. Test your urine in the morning because that's the most acidic time of the day. Right. If it's below 7.8, take a scoop of 4 salts. In fact, you should do this anyway. Take a 4 salts scoop and put it in about 120 to 240 mLs, or approximately 4 ounces.
Okay.
Okay, of water, preferably alkaline water or distilled water, and then you drink that. You drink that to neutralize the hydrochloric acid. People say, did I hear that correct? Yes, you heard it correct. You want to neutralize the hydrochloric acid because when you learn this science and when you understand the new biology, you will realize that the stomach does not digest food. And you know that intuitively, or you know it by just looking at your waste coming out of the other end. Because when you eat corn, when you eat peanuts, when you eat meat, it comes out the same way that you swallowed it. So if you eat corn and you don't chew it to a liquid state, it comes out as a whole kernel or a whole nut or a whole piece of beef or chicken. You know, here again, the body does not digest food, period. The whole purpose of the stomach is to alkalize the food, alkalize the blood, alkalize the interstitial fluids, alkalize the intracellular fluids, maintain the integrity of the environment. That's the basis of my thesis, is that the human body is alkaline by design, although acidic by function. And those waste products, if not properly eliminated through the 4 channels of elimination, which is urination, defecation, perspiration, and respiration, they build up within the interstitium or pushed out into the fatty or connective tissues. And this what leads to all symptomologies or disease symptoms are all based upon a compromised biochemistry of the interstitial fluids of the interstitium. I don't think this, I know it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it comes back to not only just what you eat, what you drink, and what you breathe, but also what you feel and what you believe.
Yeah.
And if you lose that hope,
right,
you know, if you lose that perspective of staying present, you know, and being grateful, if you allow attitude to overperform, let's say, gratitude, when you start counting your many blessings and realizing, you know, each day is precious,
right,
and your life is priceless and precious. When you realize that, and when you start changing this and restoring the alkaline design of the body fluids of the body and start building blood, I mean, that's the process that you focus on. Improve circulation, focus on blood building foods, you know, manage and maintain the alkaline design of the body fluids, you know, improve your circulation, your percolation, and then your elimination. All of this within a period of time is you'll rebirth yourself. As you work to maintain the alkaline design of your body fluids, and when you start achieving this quality of blood, this is when you start this is when you stop surviving and start thriving.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you weren't designed to be in pain, to suffer, you know, physically or emotionally.
Yeah.
Men are, women are, that they might have joy. So those are your 7 doctors. I gave you 7.
Yeah, yeah. I got them all here. Chlorophyll, oxygen, water, salt,
Sunshine,
sunshine,
oil.
oil, and sex.
There you go. That's it. I
Hey.
mean, that even makes you laugh. So it made you happy. So
Yeah. And laughter is very important. Well, listen, this has been fantastic. I am so happy to have you on, because with your knowledge and your experience, you know, it just shows what a scam this whole thing is, and what you've given people in terms of what they can do to be healthy and live a longer life is more powerful and more important than anything that they'll get anywhere else. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. And we will do this other video. I want to talk to you with the lady in Iowa City.
all right.
But thank you. And I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and enjoying this. And I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I know it was pretty amazing. And wow,
Thank you for having me.
very powerful.
I know I'm talking fast, but I want to get as much information in a short period of time. So if you have to watch this over and over again, you know, do so. Yeah.
Well, I think people are going to want to buy this recording and keep it and be able to listen to it over and over. Yeah, you hit us with a lot of information and very fast, and I'm going to want to listen to it over again as well. And you know, so this is very, 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 very informative and very important. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Clyde. Thank you, and all the best to you and your family, and God bless you, and God bless America, and God bless humanity.